I'm Tony, sitting here in this cozy guest room, the pen in my hand and the blank page in front of me. I'm reminded of the long and arduous journey that has led me to this moment. It all started with that fateful dinner, a night that shattered the illusion of my so-called happy marriage. The Smith home in Columbus, Ohio, was eerily quiet. The only sounds were the clinking of silverware and the low hum of the old refrigerator in the corner of the kitchen. The table was set immaculately, but the air was thick with an unspoken tension. I sat across from my husband, Max, and next to his mother, Ethel, who had insisted on joining us for dinner. Max's large frame filled the chair. His shoulders were hunched as he ladled another spoonful of hot soup into his bowl. His face was flushed, and it wasn't just because of the kitchen's warmth. I could feel the frustration simmering beneath the surface. I sat upright, my hands folded in my lap, my bank card safely tucked away in my purse on the chair beside me. I knew exactly why Ethel had come tonight. Ethel leaned forward, her thin lips pursed. Her voice was soft but demanding. "Tony, dear, you know how expensive my medical bills are. My pension barely covers the groceries. A good daughter-in-law would help without hesitation." I forced a polite smile, but my stomach churned. I had been through this countless times before. I had bought Ethel new furniture, paid for appliances, and even taken unpaid leave to drive her to the hospital after her surgery. But that night, something inside me snapped. I pressed my fingers tightly against my lap and slowly shook my head. "Ethel, I can't give you my card. We've spent so much this month. I need to manage what little money we have left." Max's spoon clattered against the edge of his bowl. His eyes darkened as he turned towards me. The sharpness in his gaze made my chest tighten. "You'll hand over that card tonight," he growled, "or you can pack your things and leave this house." I was stunned. 25 years of marriage, and I had never heard him speak so coldly and decisively. Before I could even process his words, he reached across the table, grabbed the bowl, and tipped it forward. The scalding soup poured over my blouse. The pain was immediate and searing, like a fire racing across my chest. I gasped, and my chair scraped against the floor as I bolted upright. I clutched a napkin, trying in vain to wipe away the soup, but it only spread the burn deeper. The room was silent except for my sharp breaths. Max towered over me, his face red with rage. "I told you," he spat. "Either give her the card or you're out." Ethel's eyes lingered on my trembling form. Instead of concern, there was a flicker of satisfaction on her face, almost a smirk, before she masked it with a practiced sigh. "Tony, really, is it so hard to help an old woman?" Her tone was sickly sweet but laced with venom. The pain of the burn was unbearable, but the humiliation was even worse. I realized that the two people at the table, who should have been my family, looked at me with contempt, not love. For the first time in all the years I had lived with Max, a cold wave of fear washed over me. I saw something in his eyes that night that I had never wanted to believe existed, something cruel and dangerous. I stumbled backward, clutching my chest. Without a word, I turned and walked quickly towards the bathroom, ignoring Max's derisive laugh and Ethel's murmured complaint that I was being too dramatic. Once inside the bathroom, I locked the door. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the small space. I peeled off my soaked blouse, wincing as the fabric tugged against my burned skin. I turned on the faucet and let the cold water run over the burns. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed like a stranger. Her eyes were wide and filled with unshed tears, her shoulders hunched in defeat, and her lips pressed into a thin, trembling line. "How did I end up here?" I whispered to the mirror, my voice barely audible over the rush of water. How did my life become this? The sting of the burn was sharp, but the ache in my chest was even sharper. 25 years of sacrifice, of silence, of swallowing my words to keep the peace. But that one violent act had shattered the illusion. I pressed a cool washcloth against my chest, closed my eyes, and let the tears fall. I remembered when I was 20 sitting on the steps outside the library at Ohio University. I had a notebook on my knees, and my handwriting flowed across the page like water. I had so many stories to tell, and I believed with all my heart that one day I would be a published writer. Max was different then. He was the boy with blonde hair and a charming smile who leaned against the rail and told me, "Tony, you've got talent. People are going to want to read what you write." Those words had lit a fire inside me. I clung to them when the world seemed too big and my voice too small. But as the years went by, my notebooks were replaced by grocery lists, utility bills, and check registers. The only pages I filled were the ones Ethel shoved at me: statements for bank withdrawals, receipts for furniture she wanted, and medical expenses she insisted I cover. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being Max's partner and became his mother's ATM. The realization stung worse than the burn on my chest. I pressed the cloth harder against my skin, as if I could press away the truth. I wasn't living the life I had dreamed of. I was just existing, paying bills, cooking meals, and making myself smaller so others could take more. A few weeks ago, I received a call from my old college roommate, Lily. She had called out of the blue and asked, "Do you still write?" I hesitated, my throat tightening. "Not really. Life got busy," I replied. "Busy," Lily repeated gently. "Tony, you used to dream bigger than anyone I knew. Don't tell me that girl is gone." After I hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the blank wall. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of everything I had given up and the crushing loneliness of realizing that no one had noticed but me. Now, standing in the bathroom, the echo of Lily's words mingled with the sting of the soup and the memory of Max's cold stare. "Don't tell me that girl is gone." Was she? I wrapped my arms around myself, the damp washcloth slipping into the sink. A sob tore from my throat before I could stop it. I had let myself be isolated. Old friends stopped calling after I declined too many invitations. Family visits became rarer when Max made excuses, and I was too weary to fight. I had been walled in, brick by brick, until the world outside our home felt unreachable. But in that moment, I realized that my life didn't have to end in this bathroom, in this house with these people. For the first time in 25 years, the thought of leaving didn't terrify me. It electrified me. When I stepped out of the bathroom, my blouse still damp against my skin, Max was waiting in the hallway. His face was a mask of impatience, his jaw clenched. Ethel hovered behind him, her arms crossed, her expression a mix of disdain and triumph. "Either hand over that card or pack your things and get out." "I'm done asking nicely," Max said, his voice low but sharp as a blade. I just stared at him. The man who had once encouraged me to write now stood before me like an adversary, a stranger who wanted to strip away what little I had left of myself. I walked past him without a word, my heart pounding, my body trembling from the burn and the adrenaline. In the bedroom, I pulled out an old suitcase from the closet, the same one I had taken to college. The zipper was stiff, but I managed to open it, and the faint scent of mothballs filled the air. I started putting clothes inside, each folded shirt and skirt a silent declaration that I was leaving. Max followed me into the room. "You think you can just walk out?" he demanded, his voice dripping with contempt. "Go ahead, Tony. Run to your little friend. You'll come crawling back once you realize you can't make it on your own." Ethel's voice floated from the doorway, sharp and amused. "Don't bother, Max. She's just throwing a tantrum. She'll be back in a few days. They always do." I paused, my hands gripping the edge of the suitcase. Their laughter, his mocking, her smug certainty, it all fueled the fire that had been lit in the bathroom. I turned slowly, meeting Max's eyes. For the first time in years, I didn't look away. "I'm not your servant," I said quietly but firmly. "And I'm not your mother's bank account. I'm done." Max smirked as if my words were nothing more than a child's protest. "You won't last a week out there." "Maybe not," I admitted, my tone steady. "But I'd rather struggle alone than keep dying here every day." The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the click of the suitcase latches snapping shut. I pulled the handle upright and rolled the suitcase across the floor. With each step, the weight on my shoulders seemed to shift. It wasn't gone, but it was moving with me instead of against me. In the living room, I grabbed my purse, my keys jangling inside. Max leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching me with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Ethel shook her head, muttering under her breath about ungrateful women. I ignored them both. I opened the front door, and the cool night air rushed in. For the first time in years, I felt the possibility of freedom brushing against my skin. I stepped outside, the suitcase wheels rattling against the porch steps. Once in my car, I sat still for a long moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel. My chest still ached from the burn, but the deeper ache, the years of silence and being dismissed, was harder to bear. I exhaled slowly, forcing back the tears. My phone buzzed in my purse. I reached for it with shaking fingers and scrolled to Lily's name. With one press, the line connected. Lily. My voice cracked, raw and fragile. I need your help. There was no hesitation. On the other end, Lily's voice was warm and steady. Come here right now. My door is open. I closed my eyes. The weight of the past 25 years was pressing down, but little by little, it was lifting. I turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, and with it, a fragile sense of resolve. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing for certain. I was leaving. By the time I pulled into Lily's driveway, the night air had cooled enough to sting against my damp blouse. The small white house stood with its porch light glowing warmly, a stark contrast to the dark silence I had left behind in Columbus. As I stepped out of the car, suitcase in hand, the door opened before I could even knock. Tony, Lily said, her voice full of relief, as though she had been waiting all evening. She crossed the porch quickly and wrapped her arms around me. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I sank into the embrace, my suitcase slipping to the ground as the tension in my body began to unravel. Inside, the house smelled of baked bread and coffee. The walls were lined with bookshelves and framed photographs, a space that radiated warmth and belonging. Sit down, Lily urged, guiding me to the kitchen table. A pot of stew simmered on the stove, filling the room with a rich, savory aroma. Lily ladled some into a bowl and set it in front of me, sliding a plate of freshly baked rolls across the table. I hesitated, but the smell was too inviting. I took a bite, and the flavors, simple, hearty, comforting, brought tears to my eyes. The food wasn't extravagant, but it tasted like home, like safety. Something inside me broke open. My fork clattered against the plate as the tears came in uncontrollable waves. Lily rushed to my side, pulling me into her arms again. Let it out, she whispered, holding me as I sobbed against her shoulder. Years of silence and swallowed pain poured out in that small kitchen. When the tears finally subsided, Lily poured me a cup of tea and sat across from me. I know it feels impossible right now, she began softly, but I've been where you are. I stayed too long in a marriage that drained me. I thought I was nothing without him, that I couldn't survive on my own. But when I finally walked away, it was like breathing fresh air after years in a locked room. I swallowed, my hands trembling around the warm mug. How did you do it? How did you find the strength? Lily smiled faintly. At first, I didn't think I had any. I cried for weeks, but then I started writing again. Do you remember in college how we used to sneak into that creative writing seminar? A faint memory stirred in my mind. Late nights spent scribbling stories, sharing dreams, believing the world was wide and waiting for us. I nodded slowly. That's what saved me, Lily said. I picked up a pen, and I didn't stop. I self-published my first book 2 years later. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I felt alive again. I stared at her, a mixture of hope and sorrow in my heart. I remembered the call Lily had made a few weeks ago, urging me not to give up on myself. Back then, I had brushed it off, too afraid to hope. But now, sitting in this warm kitchen, the possibility didn't seem so distant. You can start over, Tony, Lily said firmly, her hand covering mine on the table. It won't be easy, but you don't have to keep living like you did. You're stronger than you think. My throat tightened. Her words sank deep, stirring something fragile yet persistent inside me. I wanted to believe it, that I could still begin again, that the girl with the notebook wasn't gone forever. I glanced around Lily's home, at the books, the warmth, the life she had built from ashes. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine a future that wasn't defined by fear or servitude. Lily squeezed my hand gently. You don't have to figure it all out tonight. Just rest. You're safe here. I nodded, my eyes brimming with fresh tears. This time, not of despair, but of a fragile hope. The next morning, sunlight streamed softly through the lace curtains in Lily's guest room. I stirred awake, my body sore from the previous night's ordeal, but my mind more unsettled than anything else. The suitcase sat in the corner, half unpacked, a reminder that this wasn't my home. Not yet. Lily knocked gently before pushing the door open, carrying a tray with toast and coffee. You need your strength, she said, setting it on the nightstand. We have a lot to talk about. I sat up slowly, wrapping the blanket around my shoulders. I don't even know where to start. That's why I'm here, Lily replied. She pulled up a chair and leaned forward, her eyes steady. The first thing is your documents. Your driver's license, social security card, employment records, anything Max might try to withhold. Without them, you can't move forward legally or financially. My chest tightened. Max had always kept the important papers in a locked drawer in our bedroom, insisting he was better at handling details. I had let it slide for years until it became a habit. Now, the thought of confronting him for them made my stomach twist. He'll never hand them over willingly. Then we'll do it the right way, Lily assured me. I know someone at the precinct, Officer Ryan. He's worked with women in situations like yours before. We'll go together, explain what's happening, and make a plan. That way, Max can't accuse you of theft or trespassing. The mention of the police made me uneasy. I had never considered myself the kind of woman who would need legal protection, but the image of soup dripping down my blouse, Max's cold command in my ears, and Ethel's smirk hardened my resolve. All right, I whispered. Lily reached across and squeezed my hand. Good, one step at a time. After breakfast, we moved into the kitchen, spreading papers across the table, brochures, job postings, rental listings. Lily's pen scribbled notes in the margins as she explained. I know a landlord who rents small apartments near downtown. It's not glamorous, but it's safe and it's yours. Independence starts with your own space. I traced my finger over the faded photo of a one-bedroom apartment. The rent seemed overwhelming on paper, especially without Max's paycheck supplementing the household, but Lily's steady presence kept me from panicking. As for work, Lily continued, you have more options than you think. Remember the editing skills you used to have? A friend of mine runs a small publishing house. They're looking for part-time help. It's not much money to start, but it's a foot in the door. My breath caught. The idea of working with books again, after years of burying my love of words beneath household chores, was almost too much to hope for. Do you really think I could do it? Lily smiled. I know you can. I've read your writing, Tony. That talent doesn't just disappear. You just need a chance. The conversation stretched into the afternoon, weaving through practicalities and possibilities. Every time my fear threatened to overwhelm me, Lily redirected me to a small, achievable step. Call Officer Ryan, view the apartment, draft a resume. Piece by piece, the overwhelming mountain of change began to look like a series of manageable hills. Still, doubt lingered. What if Max comes after me? What if he makes things worse? He'll try, Lily admitted honestly. But with a police report on file and with you standing firm, he can't control you the way he used to. This is about taking back your life, Tony. Not in one grand gesture, but in steady steps. I inhaled SH.